Welcome to the Central Postgame show here on STL Sports Central. And this show is brought to you by Home Bank. All content is provided by DraftKings. The crown is yours. Luke Slabaugh, Stefan, Caray. Game 162 for St. Louis. 2-0. They're shut out by bitter rival Chicago Cubs, who are certainly going to make a deep run in the postseason. If you see how they've played over the last few games, they're motivated. They're getting hot at the right time. But I think this postgame show is going to be less about the game today. It's important to talk about the season at large, talk about the offseason that awaits St. Louis and its fans, and the future of this organization, which begins today. It begins in this very moment in a lot of conversations at Busch Stadium, at Roger Dean Chevrolet Stadium, about how this team will move forward and get back to their former glory.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to hearing some solutions. I don't have them. Otherwise, I would be making millions of dollars, Stefan. If you want to talk season retrospective, happy to. Disappointing game today, obviously. You end the season on a 4-game losing streak. You get swept by your rival, the Cubs. You have nothing going at the plate momentum-wise, 10 strikeouts. And pitching was all right. In terms of this season retrospective, it ended as it began. The offseason was directionless, aimless. Was it a youth movement? Was it a semi-competitive season? We don't know. Couldn't move guys with no trade clauses. Still to be determined if the Cardinals can move Sonny Gray, Nolan Arenado, and Wilson Contreras. Reports yesterday from the clubhouse are that Contreras is adamant he's going to stay, and Chaim Bloom is going to let him stay. And so the irony is not lost on me that the 3 Cardinals who last contributed to a meaningful postseason team in 2022, Nolan Arenado, Lars Nootbaar, and Brendan Donovan, are nowhere to be seen in the game today. Donovan because of injuries, Nootbaar with a below-average season at the plate, and Arenado likely headed to greener pastures. So this is a team that is in transition. We thought they were in transition in December. They still are. It's kind of a 2 steps forward, 2 steps back situation, Stefan. This offseason demands bold, decisive action in one way or another. We'll find out from Chaim Bloom on Tuesday what his vision is for this, I was going to say program, this organization. And he'll keep some things close to the vest. But in terms of what's next, that's what Cardinals fans want to know. What can we get on board with? What is the plan? What is this team going to look like in 2026? I'm seeing some comments now that maybe there will be some moving boxes, that maybe there will be a decisive action to bring in some talent from outside the organization. It sure seems that way. There are a lot of parts of this team's play all season long that left a lot to be desired. So the answer is we don't know where we were compared to where we were in December. And so I'll leave it at that. But just a disappointing day and a very milquetoast final week of the season.
Certainly a lot of financial decisions to be made for the Cardinals in the upcoming weeks and months for St. Louis and some of their star players, if you will. But some pretty easy financial decisions if you're listening to this show. The Card Central Postgame Show is brought to you by our business banking partners at Home Bank. From business lending to everyday banking, Home Bank has been with us since day one as a trusted partner. Business isn't just about numbers, it's about relationships. And with Home Bank, those relationships make all the difference. Home Bank is the team behind our team at STL Sports Central. Visit myhomebank.com or call 855-577-2001. Home Bank, member FDIC, more than a bank, they're your business partner. Now, Luke, 2-0, the Cardinals shut out today. We're not going to talk about it. The 4-game losing streak, not going to talk about it. Frustrating end to what was a very up and down season. And looking back on how the season began for St. Louis, just sort of taking a deeper look. Beginning of the year, this team could score with the best of them. Brant Brown had them well dialed. They had a tremendous month of May. They were within, I believe, at one point, 1 game of first place in the NL Central, and then it just wasn't sustainable. Over the course of 162, you will find out exactly who your team is. This is about, I think, where maybe even the most level-headed of Cardinals fans expected this team to end up. Certainly, we all had aspirations for a better record, but this is about right, given the talent on the field, given the injuries, and given certainly the lack of big free agent acquisitions in the offseason.
Yeah, lack of free agent acquisitions for sure. And Phil Maton, of course, headed for greener pastures at the trade deadline. So when you take away some of the guys that were holding the line And I know that Cardinals fans had their gripes with Ryan Helsley, and this team is not the same team that it was in May. You take away that 1 month, this team was just towing the line of mediocrity. I had this conversation with Brendan Schaefer last week, is that mediocre kind of comes in different shapes and sizes. The San Francisco Giants got booted out by the Cardinals this past week, and they look completely different in that they've had a lot of injuries to their pitching staff, but they got a big bopper in the middle of the lineup. They had Devers, and Buster Posey is basically the equivalent to John Mozeliak over there, but they end up in pretty much the exact same place. For Cardinal fans, it was, what steps can the talent that we have on the field, what leaps can they take? And we saw Mason Wynn brush up his defensive game quite a bit and do well at the plate. Probably profiles more, just given his clutch hitting abilities, to hit maybe in a 5 or 6 spot. We saw Burleson take a step forward. He had a couple of bumps and bruises along the way. Brendan Donovan as well with injury trouble. And so we can belabor the rotation, all we want. One thing I will say about today's game, Stefan, that's probably worth addressing is Kyle Leahy. After 100 and what was it? 197 innings pitched. Let me pull up the exact number so I don't mess this up. Yeah, after 97 appearances in 135 innings, they see fit to give him a spot start here. Makeshift bullpen day for the Cardinals, and he goes 3 innings, 39 pitches, and he gets out of it, relatively unharmed. No swings and misses, which would be concerning, but again, like, no different than a long relief outing. Leahy had to shoulder a lot of burden this year in long relief. And so I like that it wasn't a huge aberration from what we saw from him just at the start of a game. So maybe you go into 2026 and you have this thought in the back of your mind that, hey, maybe we can see internally what talent we can have to patch up the back of the rotation. Kyle Leahy, maybe a back of the rotation number 5 guy that can be built up in Jupiter. So you can see the wheels turning, some machinations going on. But man, it's this team ended up where, like you said, a reasonable baseball fan would see them. There's not a lot of pop. There's not a lot of spice or pizzazz here.
I agree with your point. Again, back to what you were saying about Nolan Arenado not being in the lineup and Brendan Donovan not being in the lineup. Again, there have been a lot of conversations, at least within the fan base. What's the game plan? Is Brendan Donovan a Cardinal next year? Is Nolan Arenado a Cardinal next year? And I look at this as 2 possibilities, right? The more likely outcome is those guys are veterans. The season doesn't really matter at this point. You want to get a look at some of your young guys. I think that's why Kyle Leahy got the spot start, because they wanted to see how comfortable he would be in that position and potentially take this start into consideration going into the offseason. But there's also a part of me that questions, hey, last game of the year that means nothing. You have certainly been linked to the possibility that Brendan Donovan and Nolan Arenado could be offloaded. What is the benefit of putting them in the game and potentially risking injury in game 162? I don't see any benefit. Certainly, I love watching Brendan Donovan as much as the next person, but I think it's a really smart decision. And yet another smart decision that I think we have to touch on by Ollie Marmol. He deserves a ton of credit for braving through this year and being able to manage this team to the record that they had with the pieces that he had to play with. In many ways, he was going to war without a weapon, and he found a way to keep them competitive. I mean, they were down to the wire. Game 159 was when they were finally eliminated with that group. Really, really impressive stuff by the Cardinal skipper.
Impressive job given the circumstances, and we've talked about this a bunch, is that, Mike Schilt got all the toys when he was in town. He got Goldschmidt, he got Arenado, he got Ozuna, and so that was those were the Cardinals trying to compete in the late 2010s. With Ollie Marmol, his first year, he wins 93 games, and he gets, the Pujols farewell tour. He gets Waino and Yadi's farewell tour, and so the last bastion of kind of the old republic, if you will. And ever since then, it's been trying to start from scratch. Like you said, going to battle without a weapon and trying to, create a new winning culture. This is a team that is learning how to win again, which is odd because the Cardinal way was constantly cited as, baseball west of the Mississippi. Like, they were the cream of the crop. And it's just bizarre that we're staring down the barrel of the third consecutive season without postseason baseball, Busch Stadium. We're not staring down the barrel, actually. We just got blasted with it. and in the face of the Cubs, which is just it's mind-boggling. It's dumb. That's all I got to say.
As things currently sit, you're going to have 3 teams from the NL Central make the postseason. I think if you asked somebody 5 years ago if the Cardinals would be in that group, if you asked a general population of 100 people that watch baseball 5 years ago, they'd say the Cardinals were definitely in that group, if not the first team. So it certainly is a very different time. It is a strange moment where there is going to be a transition of power. And again, John Mozeliak, love him, hate him, if you're one of the fans, he still ushered this team into a very winning part of the club's history. I know that the last couple of years were frustrating for people, but if you look at the body of work, he deserves a ton of credit. He deserves a ton of respect from the fans. And I'm excited to see what Chaim Bloom does to follow that up.
Right. Chaim Bloom, of course, good reputation in Tampa and Boston and developing young talent. You see that now with the Red Sox en route to the postseason with the Roman Anthony types and Marcelo Meyer, those guys, Christian Campbell, Cedon Rafaela, a lot of homegrown talent that fans can get behind out there on the East Coast. I remember the Cardinals, just for as long as I can remember, as the guys who found diamonds in the rough through waivers and trades and free agency, and also developed their own guys that people could get around. It's the fact that 30 teams passed on Albert Pujols 12 times in 1999. It's the fact that they can sign and develop some of the greatest players out of Central America. So there's a lot that Cardinals fans expect and deserve. This is a team that just the last 10 years, it's felt a little Freaky Friday. It's just felt a little off. So I'm thinking, who is the next great talent that the Cardinals fans can get behind? There are certainly guys with promise and upside. Jordan Walker was supposed to be that guy when they got him out of Stone Mountain, Georgia there in that 2020 draft. Mason Wynn's got the up-the-middle talent. But man, there's just not a lot of flash. So there are pieces, and I know there's a piece that you wanted to talk about in particular with Jimmy Crooks. I remember when he was at Oklahoma, just a wee little freshman. Dude's got good wheels for a catcher, calls a good game, can hit. Had some struggles today with Jordan Wicks going out of the bullpen there, left-hander, but I like what I see out of him in terms of the demeanor.
And that's a perfect segue into our next feature, our money moment of the game, which is brought to you by Homebank, the team behind our STL Sports Central staff. Visit myhomebank.bank or call 855-577-2001. It is Jimmy Crooks and his triple in the second inning. So a catcher with some speed. There wasn't a whole lot of offense in this game. Glad to see it. And we don't need to touch on it too much because, again, we aren't talking about this game. We're recapping 2025. My question to you, Luke, as somebody who has watched a lot of Cardinals baseball, the term runway was thrown out a lot. And runway was used as an opportunity for these young players to make their mark. Who are 3 players that you think made the most out of the runway? And who are 3 players that you think certainly could have done a whole lot more with the runway that they were given?
The comment section is going to answer this for me. However, I think the 2 guys that get the thumbs up for this year are Ivan Herrera and Alec Burleson. Herrera transitioning away from the catcher role this season, although the report is that Chaim Bloom and the organization and Herrera himself want to get him back behind the dish. 19 home runs in 107 games. So there's potential there in the bat. And he, even late this season, showed that he's got the pop there. If you put him and he plays a serviceable catcher, if he can throw any runners out, his value skyrockets and he could be a good piece. I don't necessarily know if that's going to be the case, but those 2 guys in particular, I really enjoy. I think Nolan Gorman left a lot on the table. This was a guy who, when he came up his rookie season and was playing second base and was tearing the cover off the ball right out the gate, it looked like they had a potential star on their hands. And even this year, he got back to his natural position at third base with Arenado missing a lot of time due to injury. And it just never really came together defensively and offensively. And I found that to be disappointing. In terms of, I think Mason Wynn, the final numbers won't show it in terms of his production at the plate. However, played a very good Gold Glove caliber shortstop. There's definitely more potential there in the bat. He did great with runners in scoring position and with 2 outs. So he's cool in my book. Hopefully he comes back to Jupiter, ready to put together a full good season. I know that people are down on Thomas Ajacey, and he played half a season. hit 270 in August and finishes hitting 267 this month, and 23 years old. There is still not the power stroke in the bat yet. Had that 3-run bomb pinch hitting for Nolan at the start of the year in Boston. That's a guy that I'm kind of a truther on. He could be something. I think that's a guy who could get more runway in 2026 because he's got good bat to ball skills. Didn't quite show it today, but well, he had 2 hits today, but there were a couple of miscues there as well. So those would be my answers, Stephen Caray.
I think those are great answers. And with Thomas Ajacey, I'd love to see them put an outfielder's glove on him and just make him into that super utility player, fill a Brendan Donovan-esque role. He handles the bat extremely well. And a quick reminder to everyone, the last time we'll do it on this post-game show, Missouri, you need to get ready. The wait is almost over. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is coming soon to the Show Me State, and you can sign up today. New Missouri customers can get $300 in bonus bets when we launch on December 1st. Download now and place a $5 bet when we go live. DraftKings Sportsbook brings everything you need to elevate your game day, including live in-game betting, lightning-fast payouts, and endless ways to get in on the action all right from your phone. And when we officially go live in Missouri, you'll be betting with the Sportsbook app trusted by millions. It's safe, secure, and it has fast money withdrawals. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code STL Sports to grab $300 in bonus bets with just a $5 bet when we go live December 1st. That's code STL Sports in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus, physically present in Missouri. Eligibility restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Excludes customers who redeem pre-launch sign-up offer. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. We're here on the Card Central Postgame show brought to you by Home Bank. As you just heard, this whole show and platform is presented by DraftKings. He's Luke Slabaugh, and I'm Stefan Caray, wrapping up the final portion of the show. And before we get to any more Cardinal stuff, very interesting things happening for that final wild card spot in the National League. It certainly has been 2 teams that have kind of stumbled their way into success. Mets, maybe the opposite. The Mets had success and have stumbled their way out of it. The Reds have sort of stumbled their way into it. A couple of opportunities for both of these teams to close it out to certainly open up the distance between one another. Reds losing, Mets losing, and it looks like for now the Cincinnati Reds will be that third wild card team in the National League.
I got to eat some crow on this. I never made this take public, but it is a take that I privately held. I didn't think Terry Francona was going to adapt this well to this organization in his first season. The dude's a Hall of Famer, of course, winning titles in Boston and then getting Cleveland, 1 out away from a World Series. And now, to take this team that just historically has had the worst postseason luck the last 30-ish years. They got some intriguing pieces. They've always put some interesting prospects together, and there was a Scooter Gennett reference last night with me and Joe Roderick. We were talking about it in reference to Michael Busch, who was the last player that really had the Cardinals number. But they got some guys, and even guys that aren't playing right now, Christian Encarnacion Strand was a guy that I knew at Oklahoma State, and he's got a ton of pop in his bat. In terms of the Reds, Gavin Lux was a guy that just didn't have a spot in LA. De La Cruz, of course, Steer, you've mentioned before in the past. Former Oral Roberts, great. Jose Trevino behind the dish. So there's guys. They definitely got some guys. And I think this is kind of what the Cardinals organization has come to, right? Having set the standard for player development in the 90s and 2000s, to now see the Cubs win a title since you have, to see the Brewers start becoming a class of the division, to see the Pirates, through no fault of their own, hit on some of the best prospects in baseball, and Paul Skeens and Bubba Chandler, to now seeing the Reds, have a good development system of their own. It's an organization that's got to get back ahead of the curve and find that silver bullet.
This is a Reds team that pitches well. They pitch well in relief, and their lineup is just good enough to maybe make a run in the postseason. I'm not suggesting that they're going to go and beat the Dodgers in the wild card series, but crazier things have happened. I think back to the 2019 Washington Nationals that won the World Series after being left for dead post All-Star break. All right, the final thing I want to talk about, Luke, again, as an unbiased party, as an impartial person here, I want to ask you 3 things on your wish list between now and spring training that the Cardinals can accomplish in your perfect world, what 3 things can they do to turn this thing around or even to usher in a good start to the rebuild?
3 things. I mean, I would take a long, hard look at the scouting and player development. I know that Chaim Bloom has been doing that for the past year and a half, right? I would like to see some decisions made one way or another. Does this team retool and replenish and try to go from 78 wins this year, right? 78 wins to 85. I mean, that's it's within the realm of possibility. Stranger things have happened for sure. I would make key decisions on your no trade clause guys. What they've publicly said between Arenado and Sonny Gray is that this could be the end of the line for them. We were talking last night, Joe and I, about how this Wilson Contreras logjam at first base could do a lot more harm than good for the Cardinals over the next 2 to 3 years. It's one thing to be the guy who stayed. And I think that's what Wilson will be remembered as for Cardinals fans, a guy who sacrifices his body, goes, very hard, plays, first base, learns it to find his way into the lineup. But you got a guy going to his age 34 season who might hamstring you and whose value might deteriorate over time. Whereas it might help retool the team quicker if you can find a better suitor for him in the offseason, because people will be fiending for that. And another thing too, I think, would be to sift out the logjam on the left side of the infield. Too many Chiefs, not enough Indians there. And I know that Arenado's a wild card. Gorman might not have a fit there at third base, but between Sajacy, Weatherholt, Wynn, and Brendan Donovan, who can play either of those positions in a pinch if they want to. It's just this team seems a little too corner heavy. I want more up the middle talent. I want a guy who can play a serviceable center field and can hit the ball. We saw some good pieces of hitting from Victor Scott today. But, I mean, you want to talk about runway. That's a guy who didn't take advantage of what he had that ground rule double slicing down the line, had a single to right center field as well. But we didn't see enough of that. A guy who's got, all the physical talent in the world, but sometimes boots the ball in center field. So there's that. And, yeah, I would just say know who your catcher, shortstop, and center fielder are going to be. And the rotation is a thing it's a whole other story. If you want to get top of the rotation talent, if you want to retool, that's likely going to come via trade or going to come via shelling out for a starter. And that's something that the Cardinal fans have been, clamoring for years now. But do I see this organization going out and trying to bid for a Dylan Cease or a Framber Valdez? It just would seem out of character and seem out of pocket. And it doesn't align with what we've heard from Mozeliak in the past and, this team president and ownership as well. So if you want to plug holes and patch things up for 2026, be my guest. Is it going to be that simple? Hell no. Hell no.
Very complex plan laid out, I'm sure, for Chaim Bloom and his staff. I'm excited to see what they can do. And Luke, thank you so much for everything. For everyone that is tuned in to all of our shows, pregame, postgame, character show, anything here on STL Sports Central, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. Typically as a play-by-play announcer, I would have been with the team traveling, and you guys gave me an outlet to be able to talk about baseball. And certainly, I don't know what the future holds for me within my career, but it was an absolute pleasure getting to talk about the Cardinals. Though the result wasn't what we would have hoped for the 2025 season, I thank you all for all of the spirited conversation, for the passion. That's why you guys are called the B-Fibs, the best fans in baseball. And to be able to talk to you guys night in and night out, day in and day out, has been one of the true joys of my young career. Luke, it's been so great working with you. And even though 2025 was not the best year in terms of record, I certainly will miss it, the great conversations. But I think all of us are ready to turn the page to 2026 and see what is coming for the St. Louis Cardinals.
Looking forward to it for sure, Stefan. Always good working with you. And obviously, best of luck, and I will see you around. Any final words to sign us off?
No, just keep tuning in, subscribe, like the YouTube channel, and we will bring more Cardinals conversations, though not of the postgame or pregame variety, for quite some time. We will have the coverage for you here on STL Sports Central. Thank you guys so much. Season 2025 for St. Louis is finished with a 2-0 defeat in Chicago.